of the Justice Department. Now, this book does have several important conclusions, starting with the fact that the presidents developed the power to maintain structural law and order because early American presidents recovered fugitive slaves. This is the connection between law and order and race. However, presidents developed the power to maintain episodic law and order, meaning street level crime, because states lacked the ability to combat crime and catch criminals that covered multiple state jurisdictions. The Justice Department is the primary executive branch institution responsible for carrying out law and order, but the Department of Homeland Security now carries this responsibility in the post-Bush era. The politics of race is the causal mechanism that causes the law and order president to develop and change. The politics of race is the conflict between those committed to racial equality and those committed to white supremacy. All throughout history, African Americans have resisted oppression, and this has been met with a violent white supremacist response, forcing presidents to expand or confine their power over law and order. Finally, this work challenges some of the premier theories in our presidential scholarship, such as the notion that a president's power is subjected to political time, according to Skowronek, or that presidents are constrained by a constitutional system of checks and balances, such as argued by Charles Jones and people who subscribe to the Richard Neustadt school of thought. These theories can only be true if you ignore the politics of race as a variable to the institutional development of the presidency. When you consider the politics of race as a variable, the president's power changes in significant ways. This is why it's essential to consider race when evaluating presidential power. And finally, I think we can develop a general theory of how presidential power develops based on how the law and order president has developed. That is, presidents either assume a power unilaterally or Congress delegates it to the president. The power is then used in a trial and error way, and then it fluctuates at times. Congress and the public develop an expectation or an acceptance of this presidential power, and then presidents institutionalize this power by delegating it to executive branch subordinates. Now, I'll say this last thing about the book project overall. I do believe that it breaks new scholarly ground because it offers a theory that has never been discussed or has never been considered because it traverses three subfields: presidential scholarship, American political development, and black politics. The concept of law and order president, structural and episodic law and order, did not exist prior to this work, and there was no definition of the politics of race or law and order politics. This work will be relevant to scholars in those respective subfields, but there is a considerable amount of information in here that general audiences will find fascinating that are central parts of telling this story of the law and order president. I have a section called When Slavery Was White that turns the notion of how we understand racism in this country upside down. I have a section called Madison's Secret War, showing that James Madison carried out a Bay of Pigs type mission to recover fugitive slaves internationally. There is epic dialogue between Theodore Roosevelt and Booker T. Washington on lynching, and pressure from Eleanor Roosevelt on Franklin Roosevelt about African Americans suffering from police brutality, and conversations between Dr. King about the KKK serving as police officers detailed to protect them in St. Augustine. Internal conversations showing that Nixon did not care about law and order and essentially seen it as a public relations issue. I mentioned Dwight Eisenhower releasing the tax returns of Donald Trump's father, but I didn't mention that the Secret Service used undercover operatives to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan in the 1870s. Every chapter is filled with very interesting facts that is not known by the general public and is not known basically by scholars within these respective subfields. I'm hoping to have this project done by the end of 2020, and I look forward to all suggestions and feedback on this work.